Good Tuesday morning, everybody. I hope you guys are well. I am alive, excited, and full of energy this morning. I am back from my jaunt to Atlanta. I had an unbelievable time down there with my daughter and her team and our pack. We are the Huskies, and it was just a great weekend away with family and kind of bonding time for the team, for the parents. If any of you guys are involved in kids sports, you know what these weekends can be like. But I wanted to share a story of the team and specifically my daughter, and then maybe kind of pull it back and relate it to what we're doing here in the real estate world. So we go down there. We don't have the first or the best first day. So you play three games every day, 3 games Saturday, 3 games Sunday, 3 games on Monday. And after each day, they kind of re-bracket you and they try and get you with teams that are at your level. So the first day we went 1-2. Probably could have won another game, but didn't. And so we got re-bracketed, had an okay second day. Actually ended up beating a team that we thought was probably playing a little bit better than us, probably the top team in our bracket. And then ended up getting probably a lower seed than we thought we should have for the final day, which is where you kind of play for this championship. And my daughter had worked pretty darn hard. We've been going to the gym a bit together in the morning, trying to work on a few different parts of her game. And it was one particular part of her game that we worked on a lot that the coach ended up using her for. She wasn't hitting her spikes as well as she can, but her defense was playing really, really well. And so her defense literally got her to play in a couple of extra sets that she probably wouldn't have, where somebody else comes off the court, they put her in as a defensive specialist. And we're heading into the final match, and she's not part of the first group. So you play, it's best of 3 in volleyball. So the first group goes out. They were the group that was playing better over the weekend, and they deserve to be the first group. And they go out, and they don't get the win. So we're down 1-0. So we put our second group in. The coach is pretty good about some equal playing time. So second group gets their shot. And Ella's part of that second group. And again, her defense is going really well, but her offense just wasn't what it could be. You can get hot and cold. And she goes out there and has like this unbelievable game on offense. And the team wins the second set. And they go back now for a third set, rubber match. And the coach ends up leaving most of that team out there because they earned it. And they end up winning that third match. And kind of the moral of the story for me, and Sharon had posted something about this the other day. What type of person are you? Are you the type of person that needs to feel good to play good? Or are you the type of person that has to play good to feel good? Right? And just think about that, because I think it really does matter who you are. Are you a play good to feel good, or are you a feel good to play good? Because if you're a feel good to play good, you got to kind of get the environment right. Maybe you got the music going, your settings right, you got your right cup of coffee, you're making your dials, and you were feeling good. If you are a play good to feel good, it's more of like an action type of person, right? So if you're in a funk, you got to go and take action, right? Because if you can make a couple of good plays, maybe that gets you feeling good. And now maybe some other parts of your world start to jive. So it was interesting. I asked her on the ride home which one she thought she was, and she hesitated. And I think, she's a play good to feel good, right? Her defense was really going really well, and that started to get the rest of her game going. So I don't know. I'll open it up for some comments. Do you guys feel like you are definitely one or the other? Are you feel good versus play good, or play good versus feel good? What do we think? Lauren.
I think I am more towards a play good to feel good.
Any particular examples or something that you're just thinking about in your life that make you feel that way? I definitely feel like there are times um, where I need the feel good can step in. I'm more of a play good person, but like, morning call, I play the music in the morning because I think the music can change my mood, right? I like to just try and change my mood, change my energy before we get started with this call. I like something upbeat. I want to get going. I think it's a different start to the show. So maybe as much as you guys think it's for you, it's for me to get myself going. I'm not just killing dead air. I'm trying to get into the mood of like high energy on this call and bring it every morning. We've been doing this call since COVID, every single morning. That's a lot of calls to like get up every time and try and bring some energy and bring you guys something of value. So anything particular, Lauren?
So kind of on pace with you, right? I was thinking it as you were talking about it, and I was like, kind of both. But then more relatable to kind of coming out the weekend and had like just a lot of things that needed to get done housewise, right? And I almost never want to do them. And it was kind of nice, but it wasn't super nice to get outside and start yard work. But went outside and 10 hours later, after being out there all day, like I felt so good, right? And it held me over through all of Sunday, which was like rainy and crappy. And yeah, I just feel like it might have just been getting outside also, but I
Anybody
think once I get
else?
into things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't around for the weekend. We got a little bit of rain in Atlanta. I treated Atlanta like Florida. I thought you just wake up and it'd be sunny every day, but we got ourselves some rain down there. Anybody else?
Made sense and the price was right. And probably how big you want to do this.
Oh, Steve, you trying to contribute here, or are you in another conversation?
Our property line is stone wall, probably.
I get him. Chris.
This is actually a amazing topic. It is so good, and it's funny how we can see so much through our children, you know? I think for me, it depends on the day. It could be that one day I am a feel good, do good, and then one day it's going to take okay. One day, it's going to be just the opposite. But I think, like with my son Zach, like he's really, really, really high into basketball, as you know, and we'll be driving into a tournament, and he'll be like, "Don't speak to me. I got to lock in," and he's got his earbuds in and he's locked in. But then I can see him on the court if he's not having a great game. The anger comes in, and then that can fuel him. It is good for him because he expects so much of himself. And I think we see a lot of ourselves in our children or vice versa. You know what I mean? I think that's where they probably learn it. And I can be that type of player. Like if I'm not doing good, it's like, let's go. Or if I wake up in a great mood, music's playing. I think it depends on the day.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I think maybe we can be a little bit of a chameleon where, maybe you lean towards one thing. I'm definitely more of I just got to get in action. When I start doing stuff, I start feeling better. But some days, I'm going to need the environment to change it up for me. So, maybe just being aware, and the reason I kind of want to talk about this is, maybe you're in a funk a little bit right now. I know some agents are struggling right now. The market hasn't been super kind all around. And just figure out what's going to get you out of that funk. Do you need to change your environment, or do you just need to take more action? Because one of the two has got to help you, right? If you do both of those things, something's got to click, right? But standing around doing nothing, complaining about it, we know that's not the solution. Anybody else? Martin.
My usual issue is if I feel too good, I get lazy. I think it's like everything's going good. I don't have to worry about anything. I know, to me, I strive more when, part of the expression, the shit hits the fan. That makes me want to work harder, if you know what I mean. Where everything's going smooth, you don't have to work hard. It's like, oh, it's all good, rainbows and sunshines, and I know that part. I get, like I said, I get lazy.
So that's interesting too, and I hate to keep bringing this back to the kids, but this is the world that I live in now. So my wife and I are on the constant journey of trying to understand our kids and trying to do the best we can with the parenting. And when you go to these volleyball tournaments, although they are exciting and you get good 3 hours a day of volleyball in, there's also some downtime. So she had sent me a podcast about kids and procrastination and keeping them on schedule. And the psychologist that they had that was kind of talking about this said that, that's just how some kids are wired, right? When shit hits the fan, they perform, and they're going to be a little bit more last minute, and they're going to perform. And if you're trying to jam in, you got to be 30 minutes ahead. You got to do all this stuff ahead. You got to prepare. It's going to probably do more hindrance than help. And it's not that you don't want to point these things out and ask the questions, right? If they can self-realize what's going on, maybe if I had planned a little bit better, it can help, but it's not going to be, a quick fix. So definitely a wiring thing. Linda, I see your mic is unmuted. Were you trying to get in on the conversation?
Oh, I could just talk the whole time. There's just so much here
Give
to
me
discuss.
30 seconds, Linda. What are you thinking?
For some reason, this conversation is drawing me towards the moment when the children are leaving for college, and most parents are having nervous breakdowns because they know their children. Like, I used to call my son last minute Lobo, and and I had a friend of mine who literally, I thought she was going to have a nervous collapse. He'll never make it to class. He'll never get up. How is he ever going? He's going to fail everything. And she just saw doom for this child. And here's what happens. You're sweating and you're wringing your hands and all this other stuff. And they go, and guess what? They do it. They do it because why? Because they have to. And when oh, sorry, I've got a dog in the background. Sorry. And when the children have to get their stuff done, they rise up. And when you're not on them to do it, they get it done. And it's amazing how it all comes together when you don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell that they will. And they do, and they thrive. My son was going to spend a semester in Greece, I remember, and my ex-husband was having a nervous collapse. The kids never traveled. How is he going to get from the airport, to meet up with his group, and guess what? He did. And then he stayed in a place, and how is he going to eat? He never eats, and he's so fussy. He's one of the best cooks I've ever met now because so my point is, like, all these things happen, and they happen organically, and the children thrive, and all the lessons that you've been teaching them all these years, they retain it, and it comes out, and they become these beautiful human beings, and they function beautifully, and they're amazing, and it all works out. I guess that's what I meant to say.
Well said. Well said. I hope it all works out for mine.
It will.
Well, we do have Kate Garvey, our resident attorney, on with us today. Kate, did you have a topic that you wanted to hit on today?
Good morning, everybody. I will talk about surveys and stuff. I know that's super exciting, but if there's anything that you guys want me to talk about or have questions on, if you don't want to ask, here, if you want to shoot me an email, I'm happy to do that. I was just talking to Steve because I don't always know what Attorney Sheehan talks about. So I don't want to double dip, you know what I mean? So if there is anything specific, like, let me know, because I'm happy to do that as well. But today, so in Connecticut, I was going to talk about surveys, landlines, easements, things like that. In Massachusetts, if it's not a condo, you need to get a survey done. Sometimes you hear them referred to as plot plans. They're ultimately the same thing. And that just kind of does a, whatever company you use goes out and kind of does. If you're going to stake the property, something similar to that, and you get a document that shows the property lines. And that's when you can see whether, a shed is on someone's property, or, there's an easement of some other sort, thing like that. So we need those in Massachusetts and Connecticut, that those are not required. Kind of joke how Connecticut's kind of like, Connecticut just does its own thing. So you don't need one in Connecticut, but you can always get one. So if you do have a Connecticut closing and your client does want to get a survey, reach out to me or, to your attorney, and they can give a list of surveyors who will go out and do that for, usually the cost is based on the size of the property. But it's a good way to know, if there are any property issues.
What are the biggest, what are the most common things that you see, Kate? I mean, the things that come to mind are obviously the shed, the driveways. Yeah, the driveway. Anything else weird that's fences?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so obviously sometimes a shed can be moved, right?
Correct. Sometimes it cannot.
Right.
Or
sometimes a driveway, same type of an issue. You've got a driveway that's on the neighbor's lot line. You can cut the driveway a little bit. You could, in one case that I had a like a stone paver driveway. So we had to take out 2 rows of stone, to make sure that we weren't over the property line. I have not had the fence issue, amazingly. So
I had one a couple years ago. It was a property in Ware, and a lot of times when you get something like this, like an easement, a fence easement, or a driveway easements are usually the most common ones. Everybody has to kind of play nice, right? The neighbor has to play nice. If it's your driveway encroaching on theirs or vice versa, you can come up with easement agreements. I don't know if any of you have seen them, but they get recorded in the Registry of Deeds. This is for Massachusetts. And it will say, hey, we understand that this property is so-and-so's. The person who's, whatever the agreement is, I agree to maintain it. We agree to maintain it, blah, blah, blah. But those easement agreements can get, they do get recorded in the Registry of Deeds, but everybody has to be on the same page. And sometimes that's not the case, right? I'm sure the people that you dealt with, Steve, weren't happy that they had to dig up 2 rows of pavers.
Right. Yeah. No, it was a long driveway as well.
Yeah.
So anybody have anything weird with an easement or encroachment that would just be a good share? Hey, I had a fence. Here's how we resolved it, or here's how it didn't go so well. Anybody have something from one of their transactions? Adam.
I can share one, Steve.
Yeah.
So we just had one last week. I bought a house in West Springfield, did the survey as Kate suggested, and the small sliver of the driveway was technically encroaching on the neighbor's property. So reached out to the neighbor, and all of a sudden neighbor feels like they hit the lottery and wants $5,000 for this little sliver of land. So we tried to negotiate it down, told them we were going to move the driveway to the left and not pay them. But ultimately, we ended up having to pay the neighbor $5,000 to get the get the easement recorded, as Kate suggested. So the initial solution was kind of balking at them a little bit, telling them, hey, if you want $5,000, never mind. We're just going to move the driveway to the left, which in this case, it was a gravel driveway. So it would have been pretty easy. But then we got to deal with curb cuts. We got to deal with the town, and we got to deal with the neighbor, knowing I'm going to, renovate the house and resell it. The neighbor could cause a stink now that we've raised the issue. So, I've seen sheds be put on PVC pipes and literally rolled 3-4 inches. So it doesn't always mean you gotta, take down the shed and build it back. Or sometimes these sheds have been sitting there and are rotting. You can just obviously just get rid of the shed. But I think just one point of clarification. I think sometimes when the client hears survey, they think they're going to show up to the house and there's going to be these wooden stakes with the orange flags. That is a more detailed, more expensive survey. So what you will get is a, you know, and obviously do the closing with Kate, she'll give you a packet at the end that'll have this, but it'll be a 1 page with a, you know, a black and white outline of the house, maybe black and white outline of the shed and driveway. And you can do some measuring, but it is not going to be actually staked out. So just wanted to make that point of clarification. That's a whole different type of survey that's a little bit more accurate than what they do for mortgages.
That is true.
I think you might hear the term pinning, right? So you'll end up at the end, you'll end up with little metal stakes in the corners of your property. If you want that, that's going to be extra. So a couple of good things there, right? Sometimes you got to pay a neighbor off to get them to sign the easement, right?
I'm dealing with an easement now that one of my clients, this has nothing to do with like a buy sell, it's actually a friend, but he built a pool and had a survey, and it wasn't a correct survey, it was wrong. So he ended up putting like retaining walls and stuff like that on his neighbor's property. And now we have an issue, right? Because now it's going to cost a lot of money if we have to take those retaining walls down and you know, but then the neighbor's kind of being like, he's wanting all of this money to do all this, you know, it's a lot of back and forth. So, you know, surveys can also be wrong, which is never fun.
Yeah, Kate, on that one, do you know if there's any recourse against the company that did the survey?
There is. Yeah, I mean, they have their own insurance coverage and things like that. So, you know, you can always not to throw them under the bus, but you can always go after the survey company if they are wrong, because, you know, just like all of us, they have a job to do, and if it's not done correctly, you know, there is recourse there.
Has anybody had anything come up with a survey where it was different than you either fix it or you pay the neighbor? Was there any other kind of agreements or anything unique that you might have done to get something like this resolved that would be a good share? Any other types of easements that we haven't talked about that came up on a survey that you've had done?
I got one.
All right, what do you got?
So this is my personal house, actually. When I purchased it over here, I'm on a cul-de-sac, and there's a paper street, which is a whole other ball game, right, Kate?
Oh, that's fun.
So my driveway technically is on part of this paper street. So there's this 50 feet between me and the neighbor. It's called a paper street because when they built it in the 50s, it would possibly be a street that goes through. But you can't go through because there's a flipping house that's right on the other side. So when I bought it like, no big deal. I'm a realtor. I'll take care of this. Like, I'll just fix it after I buy it. So I've been doing it now for over a year. I won. I not won, but I had to go against the city, get the neighbors, blah, blah, blah. And I got 25 feet of this paper street, this paper next to me because my driveway was literally over it. And then the guy next door gets 25 because you split it half and half. Well, now I called Levesque and I got them pinning it because I want to know. But now in the meantime, Crispy and Chris did a little basketball court on the side over there, and it's on the other side. And so when Levesque's guy is here, he comes to my door and he's like, Chris, I'm pretty sure your freaking basketball court's on his part of the paper street. I'm like, you got to be shitting me. I screwed myself because now it's his. I've given this man this piece of land that he didn't even have. And so they're still working through it right now, but there's pins all over my driveway because they're going from this part to that part to this part, right? And they basically are like, hey, if you are over, do you want me pinning it? And I'm like, hell no. Like at that point, I'm going to have to beg for forgiveness, you know, and figure out what to do because it's literally cement and a fence. And not to mention, that guy doesn't even care. He's got it like his, when I put my fence up, which is just one little privacy vinyl fence, you know, I'm like, I'm not sure if this is partly on your place. He goes, I don't care. I love it. Put it up. So, which I'm going to have to do something. So I don't know, but how about that? That's a good one.
You gotta love when you try and do something for somebody else and then it causes your own problem. Oh boy. Meg, I don't know if you're in a position to talk. Anything come up with your subdivision with lot lines or surveys or anything weird that might be a good share? She might not be in a position to chat.
I mean, so going through the process, in order to get the subdivision approved, the company that Chris referenced, Levesque, they, had to basically create the subdivision and the lot lines. And then as part of the process, we have to have, things marked out so that we, the builder and the developer know that they're building in the lines, for each lot. But I think, and maybe this is just my being naive, but I feel like it's almost easier when you're starting from scratch versus, in Chris's case, I mean, that goes back 50 years, right?
Mhm. I have to agree with you, Meg. That's why we don't, for at least for Massachusetts, you don't have to get a survey for condo associations because they had to jump through so many hoops to become a condo association that all of that stuff is, already out there, I guess. So like with new subdivisions and stuff like that, it's very similar. Everything is, to become that subdivision, they have to jump through a lot of hoops and things are created for that subdivision. So a little bit less of, you see less survey issues in those two circumstances than you do in a circumstance like Chris's where, the house is older and paper streets and things like that.
So Meg, did they force you to put pins? Does every property have the actual pins?
That's a really great question. Kate, do you know?
Um, they're not, well, it is pinned, like, so when you look at your lot, there might be 4 stakes, but it's not, I mean, you can get your whole property line completely staked out. So they usually do the 4 corners in new subdivisions, so you can see where your property line goes. So yes, the answer to that question is yes. But if you want something even more detailed, you can do that as well. Where literally there's like a stake every certain number of feet. So that's
How
not
about,
what they subdivisions, but they do stake out.
how about Florida? You guys are dealing with a ton of subdivisions. What are you seeing down there? Adam, you just bought down there, right? Do you have actual pins?
Yeah. Uh, I feel like not like what you'd think of in Massachusetts. The interesting thing down here is the title company will ask you if you want a survey or not. Because I'm actually glad you brought this up for the Florida agents. The price I typically see is somewhere around 220, 250 bucks. And they'll actually, down here in Florida, they'll, if you say yes, they'll go out and bid it out for you. And she came back and she's like, hey, here's the 3 prices to do the survey. And I've run into so much crap, that anything I can do ahead of time, I will do, whether it's the survey, whether it's the title exam, of course. So I definitely don't recall like the wooden stake with the orange flag or the metal pin. But that's not to say it's not there. The other thing I was going to mention is if you have a seller, like let's say you're buying one of my houses, I'm always going to have a survey. So you could always ask the seller if it's been somewhat of a recent purchase, if they have a survey from when they bought it, that they'll share with you, and that could save you, 200 and something bucks. Obviously, if there's a shed that's been added or there's a fence that's been added, that survey's no good. But most rehabbers are not, adding fences and sheds. So just something to keep in mind to give your client some ease and save you some money.
Can you do that, Kate? Can you borrow somebody's survey?
Yeah, as long as they want to share it.
Yeah, you would need permission, but as the seller, if I get a clean survey, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah. And I mean, I've had situations where I'm, the new buyer I represent the new buyer. And, something shows up on the survey that I got, but the survey that the attorney had who did the buy before, it was a clean survey. So like I've reached out to the attorney, like, hey, can you share with me that survey? I want to see what's going on, just to see if it was something that was created, after, or, like I said, sometimes surveys are just wrong. So I have gone back to other attorneys and asked for a copy of whatever survey they received.
Do you think the lender has to approve, Kate, or what is the lender? Because the lender is the ultimate one that wants the survey, right? Like they're the ones that are lending on this. I want to know that whatever I'm lending on is within the lot line. So I don't know if they maybe have like, hey, it's got to be within 90 days or 180 days or
Um, I- that's actually, to be fair, a lender question. I've
yeah,
never had back just because for the most part, I've usually, the surveys that I'm providing them are new.
no, yeah,
Um, so I
okay,
don't know if they have a time frame on them. I would think that they would,
yeah,
at least a year, because things
yeah.
can change. People can put up a fence or put up a shed. Erosion can happen, all different types of things. So I would imagine that there is a time frame on it. I just don't know what it is.
Hey, if we can save a few $100 for our buyers, if you're buying a flip home and you can get the seller to provide it,
Mhm.
which I don't see why they wouldn't want to if they've got a clean one. So
Yeah.
cool, cool. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody sharing this morning. Let's take a quick look at what we have for training opportunities. What do we have today? 4 opportunities. Trends and Tactics Mastermind Group results in less time with AI series, psychology-driven sales, and a live session demo for Canadian agents, I guess. So take a training, learn a little something, come back, share it with all of us. Appreciate you guys. Glad to be back on the air and looking forward to doing it again tomorrow. Have a great Tuesday. We'll talk to you in the morning. Take care.
Thanks. Have a great day, everybody.